Welcome to Toffee TV. Today it is a first for the channel. I'm joined in the studio by Everton CEO Angus Kinnear. Delighted to say I've got Angus Kinnear in the studio. The first ever Everton CEO's come into the studio, so
sounds like a mistake.
Thank you very much. No, it's a great place to start. Well, first and foremost, why have you agreed to do it?
Firstly, because you invited me.
I did.
But secondly, I think generally chief executive of football club should be neither seen nor heard. But I think in the world we live in now, supporters expect a level of communication. We want, under this custodianship, to be transparent and open. We want to tell the supporters what's going on when we've got something to tell them. And I also quite like the idea of doing it on a platform which is seen as independent. Yeah. I think when you're doing something through club channels, people think that the questions are vetted and you have 15 takes to get it right. So I think it's good that it comes from an independent voice. And I think also we're a big believer in the importance of fan channels and fan-led media. It's a new phenomenon, but I think anybody who wakes up every morning and wants to build the club and create engagement in the club like you guys do deserves our time and our commitment and collaboration.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I have to say, there's been no questions given to Angus or anything like that at all. He's waiting, looking a bit nervous because he doesn't know what he's gonna be asked. So there you go. Well, little bit about you first. I mean, football. How did you get into it?
Well, I mean, firstly, I'm a football fan. Yeah. So I've had a Luton Town season ticket for 40 years. Okay. Grew up on the Kenilworth Road terraces, watching Luton across 5 divisions. They even went down, had a little dip in the conference for 5 years. I've seen them at over 100 league grounds. Wow. So I think I've earned my stripes as a football fan. And I think, like a lot of people who are football fans, I wanted to ultimately, work in my passion, and I got the opportunity to work at Arsenal over 20 years ago now, as they were about to move to Emirates Stadium.
Right.
Spent 10 fantastic years there. Started in the invincible season, so thought football was pretty easy. Yeah. It's got harder since then. Yeah. I then spent 4 years at West Ham as managing director, and we got our highest ever Premier League finish, and I spent the last 8 years at Leeds United, where we won 2 championships. Not the right championship, but the championship we were in. You can only beat the teams you're playing. Yeah. So some great years there. Left them back in the Premier League, and then had this fantastic opportunity to work for one of the greatest clubs in the country. So
your football sort of knowledge come from people like Ricky Hill and Paul Walsh, and were they a little bit too young for them?
No, that's exactly where I am. So
Mal Donaghy, all of those.
My first brush with Everton was when Derek Mountfield broke my heart at Villa Park in 1984. So the 10-year-old Angus Kinnear was disappointed. I had the opportunity to meet Derek at the opening of Hill Dickinson, but I turned it down because I still haven't forgiven him. That's proper fan. I like that. That's pettiness. I can get behind.
Exactly. Was CEO always the ambition? And when you started out in football, obviously you said you went to Arsenal marketing, or was it that kind of? Yeah. Was it always the plan to build up? Or
no, I think I've always tried to work in areas where I think I can add value. Initially, that was I came from a commercial background, so it was sort of revenue focused and marketing focused. But ultimately, the heart and soul of a football team is what happens on the pitch, and so it made sense to gravitate to have responsibility for that, because ultimately the fortunes of a club are defined by how well the football organisations run. So I think over time it became clearer to me that that's where I wanted to spend more of my time, and now I get the opportunity to work across both.
Perfect. Was it a difficult decision to leave Leeds United for Everton?
So I think I had a lot of friends at Leeds. Dedicated a lot of my life to there. Had some very very happy memories of what we achieved on the pitch last season. Was a great season. We won the title with the last kick of the ball. So I was proud to leave them back where I think that club belongs. I think they're a Premier League club, but it was a fantastic opportunity that was presented to me. I think the term sleeping giant is used too loosely, but I think when you look at the challenges that Everton have faced and overcome over the last 4 to 5 years, I thought the opportunity to give them a real solid foundation to build upon was one of the best projects in world football, and I don't regret that decision at all.
Was that the thing that convinced you to join then, and what sort of role? Because we know that the Freaking Group bought the club last December. We haven't really heard anything other than some programme notes from Dan a long time ago and another bit in the summer around when you joined. So were they sort of instrumental in convincing you that this was a project that was going to be able to be driven forward? I
think anybody in my position, you have to choose your owners as much as your club. I think the club decision is really easy. You look at Everton's heritage, you look at the potential, you look at the fan base, you look at the city that they're in, and that makes it a very easy decision. But I think you need to find owners who have a long-term vision, who are well financed, who are going to see themselves as custodians rather than owners, who are buying it with the right motivation. And I was hugely impressed with the Freaking Group's vision. I think they have some great experience in football from their time at Roma. They had a really clear plan and vision for what they thought could be achieved at Everton, and most importantly, they wanted to give autonomy to the team on the ground. They wanted to hire the right people and give us the chance to run it with the expertise that we have locally. And so far, I think we've got off to a really good start.
Shortly before the window opened and you came in May, once Leeds had secured their sort of place back in the Premier League, we brought in other people into the structure, and it was announced there was going to be a different structure at Everton. Then we'd had the director of football model for 8 or 9 years with varying degrees of success and failure. But what was the thinking behind the new structure, and how much role did you sort of play in making that decision, or was that something that was already bubbling underneath?
No, it was something that I presented to the Freaking Group as we were having the discussions. Right. And I think this is no disrespect to anybody who's been a director of football at Everton or any club before, but I think the model is going to evolve across the whole of football. Okay. When you look at the span of responsibilities that a director of football has to undertake, it's really huge and they're really specific. So you're asking a director of football to firstly run the operations of a 200-person team, which involves, academy, women's, men's team. Yeah. You're asking them to be great at talent identification, to be able to spot players and identify players. You're asking them now to work increasingly with advanced analytics and have an analytical capability. And then you're also going to be asking them to be able to negotiate really quite complex and high value player deals with other clubs and with agents. And I think it's really challenging to find an individual who has all of those 4 skill sets. And even if they have those skill sets, I think it's even more challenging to be able to dedicate the time to do each of them effectively. So I think the world of football is going to evolve to a model, and I think it's starting this, and I think Everton are probably at the forefront of it, of having what we call functional experts, so people who are the best at those particular roles. Right. And then we work as a broader team. And if you look at the level of investment that the Freaking Group made, it's just the transfer fees, you're at 140 million, you put the wages on top of that. It's a huge investment, and I think to entrust that to one person is high risk. So we recruited a team, and I was really excited by it because we were able to secure what I think are absolutely the best people in the industry, and they were all excited by the Everton project. They were excited about the potential to make a difference. They were excited about the platform that the Freakins promised that they would deliver us, both financially and from an organisational perspective. Yeah. And so to get Nick Cox from Manchester United, who's run one of the best academies in England in terms of productivity and players that they've delivered, and you can and Manchester United are in a challenging spot more generally, but the academy I think has been the shining light in what they've achieved over the last 4 to 5 years. Nick's been at the heart of that. We then brought in James Smith from Manchester City, and James wasn't just some people might say it's easy to spot talent for Manchester City, but actually he worked across the whole of their multi-club operation. So was responsible for talent identification across that group.
And had worked at Everton before.
He worked alongside David before, has a great relationship with David, and I think that was part of the decision that we knew they would work together well. We brought Nick Hammond in, who I've worked with before, who I think is one of the best player traders. He knows everyone in the industry, he's hugely respected, and when you're trying to extract players or deal with agents, I think he carries a lot of weight and gravitas in that area. Okay. And then the final piece is we really wanted to make a step change in terms of our analytical capability. And it's well trailed that clubs like Brentford and Brighton have really created a competitive advantage by turning that into an area of excellence. I'd worked with a group called Sporting Insight, who have had a lot of success across a number of Premier League clubs and other clubs in Europe, and I presented them to the Freaking Group as a partner that we should work with longer term. Nice. And I think it shows how the Freaking Group operate, and it shows their ambition that rather than just employing them, they bought the company. So that team now works exclusively for Everton and for Roma.
Okay.
I think over time it's going to give us a competitive advantage, both from a recruitment perspective, but also they do a lot of tactical work as well, and I think we'll start to see that come to fruition in terms of what happens on the pitch as well as the recruitment part.
See, it's really interesting that they're coming in, they're going to work sort of under the Freakins umbrella, if you like, and they've got Everton and Roma. How would that work for competing players then? Say both clubs go, actually, like, this player.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet. It's been more about kind of synergies than competition. There are.
You understand the point I'm making.
I absolutely understand the point, and they're very 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 careful about that. The Freaking Group are very very clear that that there's no competition at this stage, but at the moment we found it to be a beneficial relationship rather than one with any conflicts.
Is that one? Because I'm always banging on here, people are probably bored at the amount of players that I say we should be looking at these numbers wise and stuff. Do we think that's going to be a model that Everton are going to use more now? So I'm not saying, again, without knowing the ins and outs of what's gone on over the years in terms of players recruitment, apart from I think we had the filter for fast players not on at times. Is that something we're going to be a bit more heavy on data?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think most clubs are moving more into that into that area. I think the question is whether you can apply the data, which everybody has access to. Yeah. With algorithms that are bespoke to the club and unique to the club, which can give you that competitive advantage. We definitely found in this window, for us, it's not data led. It's data is one of the tools that we have. So we had the model for recruitment. This window was we definitely used a data filter. We definitely used some bespoke algorithms that we felt would help us identify players that were high potential. But that was hand in hand with the scouting team, and we inherited a great scouting team that James has come on to lead, who are watching hundreds of matches and thousands of hours of video. Yeah. And we use the data aligned to their eye for a player and their understanding of the type of profile that makes an Everton player. Yeah. And then the third and ultimately most important pillar is David. David Moyes is front and centre of this process. I spoke in my programme notes at the weekend, and he's got a phenomenal work ethic. He is genuinely first person in the training ground and last person out. Yeah. He viewed every single video. He reviewed every single data report, and the decisions that we made were there's hours and hours of debate. We all fundamentally spent all summer together. Yeah. Discussed every player at length, and we believe in a model where, whilst we think that data can provide us insight and the scouting network can provide us insight, we also believe that we need to sign players that the manager believes in, and players who believe in the manager and are going to be able to work together. And ultimately, we got to a position where where every single player was fully aligned through all three sections. So it's a challenging process. It's not easy. It meant that some of the deals happened, later in the window, but we got to a position where not only did we get players that the three kind of core groups all wanted, but we also managed to pick players who also really wanted to play for Everton. And that was one of our other primary aims.
Is there sort of natural tension in there then? Is there people, and are you in there playing into your younger self who loves football and sitting there going, I'm involved in how I wanted to be?
Yeah, so I mean, I try and not have a technical opinion. That's not my job. I have my opinions, but I don't tend to share them with the group. I think my role is to try and create the environment where the people who have the technical expertise and the technical opinions can make the right decisions, and we can make that work with the financials of the club. You only have to look at my fantasy football team to know that I shouldn't be involved in player selection, but the process is really collaborative. It has moments of tension. I want to hire people who have strong opinions and are prepared to voice those opinions. We don't want yes men. So we have some healthy debates in terms of the right profile and the right player, and in some cases they go on for many weeks. But I think when you look at the level of investments that we're making, and also how difficult it is to get right. I mean, we started this window by looking at the number of transfers that can be deemed a success, and we created a benchmark of if a player plays more than 50% of the minutes available the next season, that transfer is deemed a success.
That's successful.
And it's about 35% of transfers do the players actually play more than half the minutes available in the next season. So, most of the players you buy are going to be unsuccessful.
Yeah.
So, we
or long-term projects, otherwise.
Or long-term projects. And where we were this window, I mean, I talked about the window being unprecedented. We had 12 players under contract. We had no players returning on loan. Most Premier League clubs would have 6 or 7 players out on loan. We had a Harrison coming back, but other than that, no one who's going to contribute. We had 5 players on loan who are all leaving the club. Again, completely unheard of. Most Premier League teams would have 1 player on loan at most. That's the average. Yeah. So what it meant was there's really little margin for error. There couldn't be too many development projects in this window. We need to sign players who could come on and contribute pretty much from week 1.
I mean, I was just going to ask you that, because David Moyes said this almost when he walked into the door, what the summer was going to look like. How difficult was that for you coming in, knowing you wanted this new structure, trying to get ahead of the curve almost so that you hit the ground running when that window started, and keeping a very strong character like David Moyes, off your back basically because of what you were trying to create? Was that a big challenge for you?
Yeah, it was a big. I mean, it was far from ideal. I think the combination of I think the level of business that we had to do would only be likened to a newly promoted team in terms of the number of players we had to get in. So it's not ideal. No. To do that with a team that you're just putting together and haven't worked together before, plus still a relatively new manager, even though he's a veteran in terms of his Everton history. So it wasn't without
nicely clarified that, just in case he sees it.
Exactly. It wasn't without its challenges, but we put together a really strong process. We were really backed by ownership early on. So I think everybody knows this, but there was a lot of interest in Jared. I think he's the type of player that a new ownership could be forgiven for saying, well, actually we'll monetize that and then we can reinvest it across the rest of the squad. And one of the first meetings, and it was a relatively short meeting, was with David and I and the ownership, where we impressed upon them the importance of Jared to the team, to where they were, and how we wanted to build the team around him. And also how I think this worked for us, that by keeping him against a lot of Champions League kind of competition, those are the clubs that were interested, it really sent a sort of message intent to the existing squad and to players that we wanted to sign, that Everton was changing direction and the trajectory was going to be upwards. And as we were having conversations with people like Kiernan and Jack later in the window, the fact that Jared was still part of the squad was really important. And I think that then went on to the next stage, which was sort of solidifying the core. no surprise, David is very big on the, particularly I think from an Everton perspective, on the team spirit in the dressing room.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's kept us up for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And he wanted to retain that, and so that's why Seamus was so important. Yeah. That's why Idrissa was so important, and Michael Keane as well. And whilst I think a lot of that was about team spirit and character and having experience in the dressing room, I think all three of them actually have evidence that they've all got a lot to give on the pitch as well, and that and sort of stabilising that core and retaining that core then gave us the opportunity to go into the rest of the window and look to overlay some talent on top of it.
Was the 9 players we brought in, I mean, did you have kittens when you heard the manager say he wants to bring 10 players in? Was that because it got replayed everywhere, stories about it? I was in the room in New York when he said it.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, we knew the number was 10. I might have not been quite as public about it as David was, but I think, one of the things, David is, a big believer in being transparent with the fan base in the size of the task. And so he told everyone what we needed to do. And I think, we pretty much got there, probably one short of what we'd have wanted ideally. But I think based on where we started, we can look back on it, with a degree of success.
The split's almost 50-50 in terms of under 25 and what we brought in, sort of over 20. 2 of the goalkeepers are over 25. Was that sort of a conscious decision, or is that just how it played out?
I think we knew that we needed to bring the average age of the team down a little bit, and I think we brought it down by 1.5 years, I think is how it's come down. We might have been able to be, if we had more of a established side, we might have been able to be a little bit more aggressive. But I think we were conscious that we needed to bring in what we call sort of proven Premier League productivity. We didn't have time for all the players to adapt. Some players had to come on and be able to contribute immediately, and that's where I think you've seen, if you look at transition risk, there is limited transition risk in Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall or Jack Grealish, who are at the older end of the spectrum. And I think part of our sort of early season form has been driven by them being able to pretty much deliver immediately.
Yeah. How big a deal was the Jack Grealish one for getting it in? Because I think that's the one that Dewsbury-Hall's been fantastic so far, and a lot of people were really enthused with that signing, but Jack Grealish is the one that has really got everyone's eyes on it. I mean, the fact we're on live for 4 of the first 5 home games and things like that just shows you the appeal that a player like that brings to Everton. I think it wasn't lost on Mitch certainly as having responsibility for the club more broadly, of the impact that a player that like Jack could have in terms of, the sentiment around the club, the excitement, ticket sales, shirt sales, all of those are benefits. But we don't let that come into the recruitment decision at all. The recruitment decision is purely football based. Yeah. And we had to be absolutely sure that we were going to get the Jack Grealish from Aston Villa 3 to 4 years ago, and we needed to make sure he was there from a physical perspective, and from a psychological perspective, and he really wanted to be there. So it was a technical decision which has had some sort of upsides around it, but really the key to that deal was David's conversation with Jack. Yeah. So whilst I've asked David to go and sort of do a little bit of a sell on players, it's not really in his makeup. So he tells them that they're going to start on the bench and they're going to have to work their way into the team. And I think it's a great sort of obstacle for new players to come over. It's not going to be soft soaped. David believes in the squad, the existing squad that we had, and the message to Jack was you're going to have to come and prove yourself. And what I liked about Jack is, rather than probably easier options available to him, but I think he liked the manager's approach and felt that it was part of what he wants to do, which is prove a lot of people wrong. He started absolutely brilliantly, hasn't he? David Moyes was in America for the tour, and a lot of his press conferences he was a bit frustrated with how it was going, and referenced a few times we'd missed out on players, and it sort of surprised him. Did it surprise you that maybe some of our targets weren't choosing Everton, and if so, how do we change that moving forward?
Yeah, so I think I think there was a reality that became apparent to us all, which was that for people of David's age and my age, we see Everton as one of the greats of the English game that everybody should want to play for. You overlay a new stadium in that, and you think this is a club that should really excite players, across Europe. And in the end, we found the players that it did excite. Yeah. But we also did have some challenging conversations where, when you're speaking to a 21-year-old player and all they know about Everton is persistent relegation battles and relegation struggles, that makes it a harder sell. We know that the big job we have to do this season is we have to take the club from a club which has been beset by ownership instability, by regulatory threat because of PSR and the reprisals around that, and the constant threat of relegation. And what I know really well is you can't run a club successfully if you're looking over your shoulder worrying about your divisional status. Yeah. You can't sign good players, you can't sign good sponsors, you can't engage the fan base properly, you can't hire and retain a good quality manager. So I think as we go into next summer, the narrative for new players around Everton Football Club will be very different, because we'll be a club that is not looking over our shoulder. We're looking forward. When we set out with the owners what success looks like for Everton, as well as we want to be known as being one of the best run clubs, and I think we can achieve that. But also we want to have an aspiration to make our supporters proud, and we think we can do that two ways. One is by what we do off the pitch. I was with Everton in the Community this morning. It's a wonderful organisation which has huge impacts on the lives of many people in our great city, and in terms of social inclusion and social justice. But also, one of the things that you need to do to make your supporters proud is you need to win football matches. And everything we're doing is around building a structure and a team that can win football matches. And if by next summer we're talking about a team that has finished in the top half of the table and had a good cup run, and I think we've seen what Newcastle have achieved with a cup run, what Crystal Palace have done by winning the first trophy in their history, by teams like Nottingham Forest having flirtations with European football. And I think if we can get there, then I think the narrative with new players will be very different, and will be a really compelling proposition.
Is David Moyes difficult to buy for?
Yes, and for all the good reasons. He is incredibly demanding. He's not prepared to compromise on anything. He really drives standards at the training grounds, because he has incredibly high aspirations of where Everton should sit. I mean, if you're Evertonian, you can't have a better man than someone who just believes the club should sit in right in the top echelons of English football. So he is really
music to my ears.
Yeah, no,
music to my ears.
But he is really challenging, because he puts every player through that filter. Are they good enough? Are they good enough to be an Everton player? Are they good enough to be a player who can push us for Europe? Yeah. There are no compromises. I mean, the number of no's. It is no to 99% of the players we present. And then anybody that you do present, if they're great at defence, he wants them to be a bit better going forward. If they're great at going forward, he wants them to be a bit better defensively. But it creates a culture at the training ground of high performance, because everybody's driven by the standards set by the gaffer. Yeah. And football clubs still work that way. So he's really difficult to buy for, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Why do transfers take so long? We get asked this. It's twofold, this one. You've been involved in hundreds of transfers, obviously. Why did they take so long in general? But how come on deadline day they can be done in about 3 hours?
Yeah,
so we just have one day when the transfers are done? I
have to say, from enjoying my summer holidays, if the transfer window was a week, I think we could still do all the work in a week. The challenge is that players and agents and clubs are always just jockeying for something better. They're waiting for that Champions League club to come along. Whether it's the selling club is waiting for a bit of competitive tension in the marketplace. the agents running around the market trying to get other deals in. So it tends to every summer I've always sort of said we want to do our business early, and we would. It would have been much better if we could have been in America with a full squad. I don't. I wouldn't underestimate the job that David and the team did in being able to get ready for the start of the season as quickly as they did. On the faces we were built, there was so much churn in the squad, and we were building the squad so late in the window. And if I'm being honest, the season probably came one game too early, so I don't.
Certainly one half too early.
Yeah, exactly. So we weren't quite on it at Leeds. No. I think. But by the time Brighton came round, we were there and back, and so I don't think anybody would said we had ideal pre-season preparation, just because of the volume of transactions that we needed to do. And that's why they tend to get pushed to the back of the window, because people are just
waiting for something better, basically.
And even when you can get an agent and a player who are really keen to join, you still might have the club holding up for more money. And whilst there's a small premium worth paying in terms of getting players in early, you also don't want to be outmaneuvered in the market and overpaying for players because you're trying to do deals too quickly.
Did we miss out on any players on deadline day? I know we brought Merlin Rowland, and he looked like he settled in quite nicely against Aston Villa. Was there other players that we tried to bring in? Or
no, there was one to be done on deadline day. So deadline day was sort of split into two parts. One was making sure we got Merlin over the line, and that didn't slip up, because that deal came, whilst it'd been a player that had been tracked by the club for a while, since the previous January, it actually came to the table kind of quite late, and it was a good fit, because at that point, I think what we all decided we needed was a little bit of versatility. The squad is still probably one or two players short of where we would want it to be, I think Merlin has a high degree of confidence that he can play across the midfield, on either wing, and across the fullback positions as well. So
fair enough.
I think he will find his position, end up being a good position. He'll probably be a kind of running 8, I think, is where he'll end up. But he had that flexibility. So part of the window was doing that, and then part of the window is part of the last day is monitoring the window and seeing if there are any kind of exceptional opportunities that you weren't aware of that arrive at the last minute. And it might have been if we could have found a really high quality right back to provide some competition to Jake, then that's something we'd have made a move for. But going into the last 24 hours, there wasn't anything obvious on the horizon.
Lots of supporters have asked. We obviously made Charlie Alcaraz's loan move permanent, but for a 22-year-old player, a lot of people are a little bit sort of perplexed why he only signed a 2-year deal. Is there any sort of light you can shed on that for people?
So there are the club has some options within that. Is the simplest way, and ultimately it was just an agreement with his representatives, which still give us some flexibility. I think Charlie's hugely high potential, still got a lot to prove. We think he will, but he's very committed to Everton and the future there. So I think we now have a structure where I think we will be able to retain our best talent, and when we decide not to retain our best talent, I think we'll do it on our terms, and it'll be because we think we can reinvest that money back in the squad and emerge stronger.
It's just one that keeps popping up. Why is it only a 2-year one? The one a lot of people I think want to know is there still money available for January? The window's barely shut, I understand that, but people then immediately did they go to the next one? Who are we going to sign in January? So is there room for us to do something in January? It's
a good question. So I think our the premise that we worked on is that we really wanted to build a squad in the summer and make it right for the whole season. That's the idea, and that's for twofold. One is because that squad then has 38 games to have a crack at things rather than 19, and the other is because January is typically a challenging time to get the right talent at the right price, and it tends to be it tends to be littered with panic buys and mistakes.
Yeah.
So I think in the ideal world, I think January's likely to be quiet, because I don't think we're gonna have we'll be able to see the value that we want, or identify the talent that we want. But we'll work hard through that window. I think.
Does that mean loans may be an option? And
I think
if needed,
it might be the opportunity. It will certainly be an opportunity to fix anything that's going wrong. So it could be injury, it could be underperformance of a certain player or area that we need to back up. But we also know that the job we need to do on this squad, it was always a 2-summer window process. Yeah. And as we come into next summer window, I still think we'll still be right in the heart of constructing a squad which can get us to where we want to get to. So I think if we can take some stepping stones in January to get us in thing, but I don't really, we'd ideally not do anything short term. It'd ideally be a longer term buy. We will do. There's money there to do it. We're well funded. We are now back to a position where we have the PSR headroom to operate. But we'd like to think that the squad that we've assembled can take us through the season and finish where we need to finish.
Has that process almost started for next summer as well, or how soon does that normally start? Do you think planning?
It's continuous now. Okay. So the squad planning. The guys are already looking at which contracts are up, who needs to be renewed, where we're likely to need to sign players, where we're likely need to strengthen. I mean, clearly it'll evolve as the season goes on. There's still a lot to learn from the players we've signed. But recruitment now is really it's a 52-week of the year process, and as is not just identifying the players, but potentially engaging clubs and or agents in the potential of a player to move. And again, that was one of the challenges we faced in the summer, is we were taking it from a standing start. Many other clubs would have had conversations well in place and well well in track at that point, and we didn't. So I think we'll approach next summer in a much stronger position.
I think that'll be music to Evertonians' ears, because Kevin Thelwell, when he was in post, obviously with everything else that was going on with the owners, was famously saying we can only plan one window to the next. So I think if Everton have now moved past that, where the planning horizon is much further, then we're in a much better position anyway. You just sort of mentioned it then. There's a few players who are out of contract next summer. So James Tarkowski, James Garner, Mikalenko, and obviously Jordan picked a lot of talk about new contract for them. As those negotiations started, are they ongoing? So anything you can tell us about them?
No, so we're I mean, all of the players you mentioned there are core to what we think is making Everton successful at the moment. So they're all big parts of that. The players have been really responsible and mature, and we said, look, we needed to get this window out of the way, and that was the priority. And they knew that as well, and they bought into it, and they were knocking on the door asking about when new players were coming in as much as anybody. But that, I think, any fan will realise the importance that those players mean. So I think ensuring that they're part of our medium term future is really important. But I've been hugely impressed by the players and their attitude and the leadership team. So we one of my jobs is to negotiate the player bonus pool, which is the win bonuses or the positional bonuses, which they get on top of their base contracts. And I do that with Jordan, James and Seamus. And normally it's a lot of clubs, it's a sort of bun fight over them just trying to secure as much money as they could. And this year they came in, and the one thing they asked for was that all the backroom staff shared in the bonus pool, not just the players. And that's something that happens at a lot of clubs, but had been sort of phased out at Everton. But they wanted to make sure that when they win a game, the kit man, the chef, the coach driver, are all benefiting from that. And I thought that's that's the type of club I want to belong to, one which where there's a real team spirit and across the board. So the players have been great, and they've been selfless, and they've just been focused on getting ready for the season. And as we across the next couple of months, I'm sure we'll resolve any outstanding contract situations. Brilliant.
Was it a success overall, would you say, the window?
I think it's still to be proven. It's still to be proven.
Yeah, fair.
What I would say is I think we ran a good process. It was disciplined. We didn't panic. We stuck to the plan. I think we've secured the players that we wanted to secure. I think if you'd have given me at the start of the window, you told me where we'd end up, I'd have bitten your hand off for it. I think we've got a good blend of we maintain that defensive solidity, which has been a sort of a hallmark of David's teams and Everton's teams, and I think we've added some attacking flair. So the potential's there, but I think part of my job is don't get too high on the high or too low on the lows, and there's still a lot of work to be done. But I think we've given the team a good chance to succeed this season. I think the early games have given us glimpses of the potential.
Obviously, we've moved stadium, and there's been a lot of talk about that. Hill Dickinson Stadium was met with mixed reviews, I think, when it was first announced. So why did Hill Dickinson win the naming rights deal?
Yeah, so I think we're aware that supporters are always going to be questioning of a naming rights deal. To be honest, it's a property, a sponsorship property, which has had kind of limited success in the UK. It's sort of very standard in US stadia and arena, and here that there haven't been too many great naming rights deals, and I think they're hard to get away. And you only have to see, I think the Tottenham Stadium might be close to getting one, but it's a couple of years after it was answered and after it was opened, and the naming rights are key to the funding of the stadium model. So. And what we wanted to do was find a partner who was prepared to put in the right level of investment, which is money that you'll see from all the accounts, and we're very transparent. Everything that we are all the revenues the club making is going straight back onto the pitch to reinvest into the team. So that was the first thing. We need to find somebody who was prepared to buy into the value of the proposition. And then we also wanted a brand who knew a little bit about Everton and believed in the club, and the team at Hill Dickinson really do. There are some parallels. They are a company with a long history. They have a maritime legal history from our city. They've been invested in the city for I think over 100 years. They have a global footprint, so they want to activate their brand more globally. And we felt there was a really good fit between, and it was unusual that we could find a local brand who understood the city, who has many Evertonians working in it, but also they have a global footprint and they have a global outlook, and they want to help build Hill Dickinson brand and the Everton brand globally. So I think we've ended up in a really good place, and it was just another testament to the direction and trajectory of the club that we were able to get such a good deal away.
Excellent. Obviously, within the stadium, we've only had 4 games, competitive games there. There's been, certainly we speak to thousands of Evertonians every day, and some of the feedback we've got so far is outside, love it.
Yeah. Sitting
in the seat, unparalleled anywhere. The bit to get from outside to your seat, not so great, and that's things like the pricing of food and drink, I think, has caused donut gate, and things like that. How, in terms, I know it's outsourced, but in terms of price control, do Everton have any sort of input into that? Is it something that's going to get reviewed?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the overall experience, the good news is the bits that really matter and are hard to change. So we have an iconic stadium sitting on the waterfront, which looks like a world-class stadium that is befitting of European football and a club of Everton stature. So that's good because you can't change that. Yeah. The more important thing is that we have a bowl which I think for a new stadium is going to come as close to being able to recreate the atmosphere of Goodison as any stadium.
Agreed.
And I think that's equally important. I think we were all a little bit nervous because we know, and Evertonians know better than I do, how many points that the fan base have won over the years in terms of the spirit that they've created at Goodison. So I think it's another huge positive that we know that this stadium now has the potential to be the hostile cauldron that we want it to be on a match day. We also know that there's lots of other ancillary elements that we haven't got right yet. Yeah. But the good news is they are easy to change, and we will change them over time. And we are learning how the building operates. We're learning how supporters operate in the building and the flows, and we will get better. And for supporters who've had poor experiences, we're quick to apologise and we're quick to try and get it right. So I think it will get better over time. It helps as supporters start to learn the building itself. That will help us. Our stewards will learn the building, more. And then I think in terms of pricing, we have a catering partner who've invested significantly in the stadium, and we do work with them regularly to try and ensure that the prices are competitive and sit alongside other venues, but also are fair to supporters as well. We want to give people fair days out, and I think there's a continued process in terms of getting that right, and there's some areas that we haven't got it right, but no man likes a donut more than me, so so I'll take that one away and have a look at it. But ultimately the vision is that this is a stadium that do we want it to generate revenue? Yes, we do. I mean, as you look now across the Premier League, the ability to generate revenue from your stadium is the difference between the teams which are going to struggle in the bottom half of the league and the teams which are going to flourish in the top half. And we shouldn't shy away or be apologetic about this being a great platform to move Everton in the direction that we want to move it. But at the same time, we want to be fair to supporters. We don't want to price people out, and we want to make sure that everybody can experience a wonderful team in a wonderful stadium at a fair price.
Isn't it just a slight danger where the stadium is that there is other options for people that are much cheaper than what they've found so far? And I don't mind paying extra for my season ticket. It's gone up quite significantly, but I've got better facilities and things like that. But I just think sometimes with that pricing, I just don't think we've got it right. Me personally, don't think we've got it right. We certainly, again, haven't got the service right either in terms of quickness. We're seeing, like the Villa game, just use that as an example. Empty seats, 10 minutes into the second half because people aren't getting served quick enough. So I just wondering if there is that feedback going in, and how do we improve that?
So there's definitely some operational challenges, and you've got to remember that we have 3,000 staff, a lot of whom are new. A lot of them came. Majority came from Goodison, but they're working in new environments with different systems. And as you said, although we're a couple of months into the stadium now, it's only 4 matches, so they've had four goes to get it right, and they will definitely improve. And then I think you're right to point out the kind of commercial reality of we're in competitive marketplace. We know we've given a shot in the arm to the local economy, and there's been many an enterprising Evertonian has created venues along the northern shore, which I think has added to the vibrancy of it. So it's not something we complain about, but it does mean we need to stay on our toes and be competitive. And ultimately, our vision is that supporters come to the stadium early. They enjoy the fan plaza. They enjoy the fantastic concourse on the south side of the stadium with the windows looking down the Mersey and back into the city. And we'll need to be competitive if we're going to get our fair share of that spend. So you're right, there's some commercial reality to it as well.
Is there any plans to, because Everton in the past have had a training ground sponsor and all that, everyone has them, but are we looking at things? I know you've come in and you've had an awful lot on your plate to just walk through the door with the transfer window being right upon you. I'm guessing in an ideal world you might have come in ahead of that. But so the things like maybe Finch Farm, maybe getting a sponsor, maybe a separate training kit sponsor, the way Liverpool, Man United have it, that kind of thing to try to drive revenues up.
The key to all of that is you need the club in a position where people are feeling optimistic about it and want to associate with it.
Yeah.
And I think whilst we've had some fantastic partners who've been really loyal to the club over the last 4 to 5 years, it's been a tough sell for the club to talk about a narrative where people feel this is something they want to be part of and put their name to. Yeah. And I think with the foundations we've built across the summer, with the ambition of the Freaking Group, we now have a proposition that partners want to engage with, and we've seen it in our initial partnership sales, not just Hill Dickinson, but Budweiser and Pepsi. We've seen it in our retail sales and the number of Jack Grealish shirts we're selling. But there's a general mood of optimism and belief that the club has a firm foundation and we're moving in the right direction. And I think that gives us the opportunity to take those additional commercial opportunities, like training grounds, like segmenting your kit partnerships a bit more creatively, and I think we're in a really good position to do that. And I think we'll drive revenue growth from it across the next year.
Obviously, we can't have steak on the front of the kit next year because of the rules. I understand they could still be on a sleeve.
They can still be on the sleeve, yeah.
See, are those negotiations with a new front of kit partner, I guess they're underway.
They're underway, and we're in discussions. And as I said, we're enjoying the fact that we can tell a really positive story about what's happening. And so, lots of brands who might not have considered Everton in the past are now seeing that there's something really, really exciting happening this half of the city.
Fingers crossed. Have the Freak, I guess they have, but we haven't really heard from Dan Freakin since he took over. Have they told you their long-term ambitions for Everton? Because it would be nice if there was something from them that sort of said, hello, we're here. And our ambitions are, I want to hear them saying Everton are going to win the Premier, or they want Everton to win the Premier League, but is there any sort of plans to maybe get Dan to do anything or to relay through yourself?
So I think what I can tell you about the ownership is they're not in this for personal profile, right? Which I think is a good. I think is a good thing. It's a really bad way for any owners to go. So they're not seeking that. Yeah. They've put a lot of autonomy and put a lot of trust in me. They give me a lot of autonomy to run the club locally, which is I think it's better to give it to people who understand the business. Yeah. However, I don't think that should be confused with a lack of engagement. Okay. Danny, Ryan and Corbin, so Dan and his 3 sons, we were on transfer calls twice a week, every week, all the way through the window. There is no lack of intention or focus in terms of how the club is being run. They have a great team at Pursuit Sports, which is their new holding company, who not only give us their support and expertise, but a really sound level of governance. So I think supporters should be reassured that they've got owners who are not out there seeking headlines, but they've got owners who are doing the important bits. And the first one is making sure the club's funded. The second one's creating a real ambition. And I think it's very clear from the Freaking Group that they want to see the club win things. That's what's important. And that's, I wouldn't have joined a club which didn't have the vision of winning something. So that's there. But they're not going to shout about it from the rooftops. We want to be judged on our actions, not on our words. So I think the fan base should just feel very reassured that they've got custodians with a long-term vision who are well financed and ambitious. That's a massive sort of message there. I think we all want to hear stuff like that because we haven't heard anything. Can I ask you about Nelson Dock? There's been some talk, Colin Chong. Don't know whether it was just before you got here or while you were here, but he talked about the possibility the club are looking at maybe purchasing Nelson Dock and maybe some other venues around the place to create Everton Village or Blue Village or whatever it is. Is that still ongoing? Is it something the club might consider doing, maybe what has happened with the Etihad Arena down at Manchester City or things like that? So I think part of the vision for the stadium, and part of the vision that we've had with Leeds City Council and the combined authority, is that the stadium can be a catalyst for wider regeneration across the northern shore. And I think it will be. I think it's started in a small way already, but I think we can certainly drag the spirit and vibrancy and commerciality of the city up north, along that bank of the Mersey. How Everton precisely are going to be involved in that is still to be defined, but we are clearly a core tenant. We're right at the heart of the changes that are being made in there, and the catalyst for regeneration. And I think there are parcels of land, including Nelson Dock, which would either be interesting to the club independently, or the club in partnership with other developers. But I'm pretty confident that in 20 years' time, that part of the city is going to look very different from how it does now.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. Something I should have mentioned before and I didn't was just about the stadium. Stadium tours have just opened up now, and I know they're booked up and everyone's really excited. But just a little bit of feedback we had was there's no museum or trophy room on that thing. Are there any plans to maybe put something? You might not know, I'm just asking you the question while I've got you, but is there any plan to sort of put something in that is a nod to our history? Because I'm thinking of cruise ship, the cruise ships pulling up and people going for tours. I'm sure you've done a tour of a different ground. I certainly have. And when you sometimes see that all the trophies that team have won, it sort of refreshes how big they are within that.
Absolutely. So I think we think there's a real potential for our tours business, because not just around Evertonians, but Liverpool is outside of London is one of the biggest, the most visited cities in the UK from a tourist perspective, and we think Everton deserves to be very much part of that experience in terms of visiting the city. And in fact, I don't know if they've been launched yet, but some of our tours will include both Hill Dickinson and Goodison, so you're going to be able to see the history as well. But I think you're right. I think as the tours evolve, we're going to need to turn Hill Dickinson more into a I hate the word, but a visitor attraction. I think it's going to need to have interactive elements which tell the story of the club from a historical perspective, but also tell the story of how the club operates today. And I think there's some really clever kind of multimedia ways and IT driven ways that you can create an interesting experience which is a bit more has a bit more colour and a bit more depth to it than just walking through some glass cases with some with some pennants. But yeah, we think it's got huge potential, and we'll even be looking at opening some of the match day restaurants on non-match days, because we think it's a fantastic venue to as a dining venue as well. So I think really what we want to do is make Hill Dickinson a vibrant venue 365 days of the year.
Fantastic. Last couple, I know you're really busy and you've got to go. What are your aims for the season? Or what are the club's aims for the season?
In the simple terms, I want to make I want everyone to feel really proud of what we've achieved this season, and I think that can be done match by match in terms of how we approach the games. I think whereas historically we've probably the last couple of years, the club have been playing with some jeopardy in terms of divisional status, and there's been some nervousness. We want to create a platform where we can go out to games and be the protagonists. I think we showed that against Aston Villa. There was only one team trying to win that match. Definitely. And we want to go into every game doing that. So I'd like to think that what we've done on the pitch will make our supporters proud. I'd love it to end in some kind of tangible success. I certainly would want a top half finish. I think we would love a cup run. I think there's nothing more that could galvanise the fan base than 50,000 Blues travelling down to Wembley for the day. But we're also pragmatic. We operate in a really competitive league. There's lots of smart people working for the other clubs. They're also well funded. They've got good owners as well. But I think if you take a longer term horizon, if you take the medium term, 4 to 5 years, I think that's something that's very, very achievable for Everton. And then I think off the pitch, we need to make the stadium work. We need to make sure that everybody has a good experience in there every time they come. I think we'll get there because we should be in a position where every Evertonian is really proud that that's our home, because it's a wonderful venue, and once it operates perfectly, which I think it will, then I think it's going to be a fantastic advert for the club for every fan that attends.
Angus, thank you very much for giving up your time.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Cheers. So there you go. A huge thank you to Angus for coming in and spending some time just answering a lot of the questions. Make sure you leave your comments in the comment section below. Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel. See you later.